Thank you and welcome to the show for today. You are watching Perspectives and I'm your host, Alana McLaughlin. This morning on the show I have Shannon Sanders Jr. here discussing Cape Coast Coffee Company. Shannon is discussing his background, his education, the mission that he seeks to show us and the impact that he seeks to leave on Tennessee communities. And Shannon, I just want to thank you for joining me this morning. I just want to thank you for sitting down and allowing me to pick your brain for a while.
Thank you, thank you.
To get this first segment started, I want to talk about those baby Shannon years. Tell me about just your early background, where you're from, early education, just those baby years.
Yeah, so born and raised in Nashville, was born at what was the time it was called Baptist. Mom, dad in the house. It was great. I mean, family dinner every day. And of course, listening to my dad making music in our loft upstairs. It was pretty normal, pretty routine.
Now tell me what you were interested in as a child. I know with Dad being in music, did you have any early musical experiences?
Yeah, so I mean, I did try. I did play trumpet like he did over at TSU for a bit. But as I grew older, just do something different, I got into doing some sports and just kind of working through some ideas.
Now take me through high school, Shannon, leading to Morehouse. Tell me about just the inspiration behind going to such an awesome historic school, and really just take me through that high school transition into college.
And I think it was all about just finding what I was passionate about, and that was going somewhere that allowed for smaller classrooms, allowed me to really get the focus one-on-one with the teachers to really go through and develop some of the ideas and thought process that I was going through. I mean, I've always, thought as a child, think big, think community, and Morehouse offered the best opportunity for that.
Now, at Morehouse, I know you were studying economics, but it started as journalism, and we touched on this kind of off camera a little bit. I want you to tell me about that transition, kind of realizing that journalism wasn't necessarily your niche, and tell me about just how studying economics at Morehouse kind of felt.
Well, I think journalism was an early goal, but I think the underlying thing that I wanted to accomplish was communication. So eventually I chose communication through goods, which is how I got on the cans.
And man, I'm trying not to jump the gun by getting into the business yet, but I want to talk about going back into your childhood a little bit. I want to talk about your grandfather. I want to talk about his coffee shop in Ghana, and I want to talk about your relationship with him. So I want you to set that up for me. Tell me about Grandpa and tell me kind of the impact that Grandpa had. I love this.
Yeah. My granddad, Jeff. And I do call him Jeff. He said, hey, I'm your grandfather, but you can call me Jeff. And since I was a child, we always had that open line of communication. So he was in Oakland, so with them being a couple hours behind, after a long day of work, school, he was always there for me to just pick his brain, and he was always just a sounding board for ideas and things that were just going on in my life.
And now tell me, what was he, now he was in Oakland, that's in California, and tell me what he was doing in Oakland.
So he did a mix of things, but he was a nurse.
And now where did coffee come into play in all this?
We've always been coffee people, so even my grandfather's father, my great-grandfather, was a regular at a place called Pete's Coffee that opened up in the 60s in the Bay Area.
And so now, I'm amazed hearing this because I'm thinking there's this long-standing tradition of these farmers. But seriously, tell me about the transition from just being religious coffee drinkers to actually establishing a coffee shop. Tell me Grandpa's establishment in Ghana, and that's how we're going to kind of close out this first segment.
Yeah, so he's a huge traveler. So on top of being somebody who was big in the community, he traveled the world. And his favorite country where he settled was Ghana. And one of those things he always wanted to do was have a coffee shop, so he made it happen.
What? Now, Shannon, I can't just accept he just made it happen. Man, I need to know kind of the details about this. Okay, so he settles on Ghana. That's number one. Is he just getting with a realtor, looking for land? Does he establish himself? I have so many questions. Yeah, you're just looking at me. Oh, tell me, how did Grandpa get this off the ground?
In those trips back and forth, he met his now wife, who actually had a place, and that they repurposed that place from a restaurant into a coffee house, which now is in fact the hub for the Cape Coast community. So it's where people go to get the news, they go to see events, it's vendors, and of course a good cup of joe.
And now, in this first segment, tell me about kind of when, I want to hear about the inspiration behind you taking these Grandpa Jeff's ideas and bringing this to the United States, specifically to Nashville. Give me, I guess, a paragraph's worth explanation of when you knew that this is something that you'd like to start here in town.
He fell in love with the beans, and Oakland, just like a lot of places in the West Coast, the Northwest, are really big into coffee.
Okay.
So when he went over to Ghana and he said, Shannon, these beans are really good, he sent them over to me, and I fell in love with them as well. But for me, it was all about the convenience. So instead of having it in a bag, why not put it in a can so we can grab it and go and have all of that goodness on the go.
And in our second segment, we're going to pick back up on just how amazing of an idea it is to put this in a can, because you think about bottles and having to brew it, and it's just all a mess. And I encourage our viewers to tune into the second segment of Perspectives, where Shannon and I will be discussing Cape Coast Co., his background, his education, and the impact that he seeks to leave on Nashville communities.
The National Desk, a network of nearly...
To the second segment of the show for today. You are watching Perspectives, and I'm your host, Alana McLaughlin. This morning on the show, I have Shannon Sanders Jr. here discussing Cape Coast Coffee Co. Excuse my stuttering, all the alliteration is getting to me this morning. But Shannon is here discussing his background, his education, and ultimately the impact that he seeks to leave on Nashville communities. In our first segment, Shannon discussed his background. He talked about his relationship with his grandfather, Jeff, and we talked about the start of Cape Coast Co. And we're going to pick right back up on actually getting this brand started. And yeah, we just left off in our first segment. Jeff is sending you these awesome beans from Ghana, and they're great. And you're thinking about just a way to kind of make this an easy, on-the-go kind of portable thing. I want you to take me through step by step from the first shipment from Jeff to actually holding this can in your hand that says Cape Coast. Tell me about that journey. I want to know step by step, right? You have these beans in your hand. Tell me about, okay, actually putting this in bottles. Take me through it.
So it was right after COVID, sent over the first batch of beans. Of course, the first step was letting my parents try it, friends, going through all the processes, the pour over, the French press, putting it in the K-cup, and it was good. But the one thing that was the catalyst for the pivot was when I wanted to have my friends try it, I had to have so many supplies and machineries to go with it.
I know.
To grind the beans, to have the appropriate heat, to have the appropriate weight. So just thinking through a more efficient way to have everyone try these beans from Ghana, we stumbled across the idea of putting it in a can, so it was already brewed. So all they had to do was crack it and they could sip it from there.
Now tell me about your trial run with this stuff. Okay, so you've had to acquire some type of like manufacturing space to put this in these cans. Tell me about the trial and error associated with this.
So it's fun. That was the fun stuff. So with that, we brought in some experts, some local experts. And we went through and just tried various roast levels, various heat temperatures.
Okay.
It's called the cupping process. And we got to try the various flavor profiles. After that, we decided to blend it and see what that did to it, just to make it more palatable and smooth for consumers. But that process took us about 2 months. And then that's when we said, okay, this flavor profile is good. It's a dark roast. It's smoky. So why not try it out?
And now, is this the catalyst? This is how Catalyst was born. So now take me through El Jefe.
Yeah, so it's called the Jeff. After my grandfather Jeff, and he actually discovered whole bean coffee or real bean coffee in Mexico. So on top of that being a Mexican bean, it is sweetened with cocoa powder that we import from Ghana and some vanilla bean. So it's really just me saying to the world, this is my rendition of my grandfather's intro to coffee, and sweetened with another product that he consumes often, cocoa from Ghana.
Now, Shannon, okay, this all sounds phenomenal, but I need to know how we got from these grand ideas to what we see now, what we see across town, what we see in the espresso martini. Tell me about branding. Now, I know like you definitely had a great benefit of having your dad who was so like in tune with Nashville. Like that has to be a benefit. But seriously, you establishing yourself as a business owner, tell me about finding, like logos and actually pitching this to different stores. Take me through that.
I think one of the things I learned from him, my dad, was just to fall in love with the process. So in just being committed to the journey and the process, it's just really been the easiest part of it. It's nothing, as long as I'm committed to pushing through and finding those logos, finding the right colors, finding the right partners. That's the part I enjoy most.
Really?
Yeah.
And we hear a lot of entrepreneurs, they don't like the grit work. They just like, seeing the revenue.
That process, yeah.
And I want to talk about, take me through some of the events that you've done, some of the collaborations. I've seen a lot, even most recently, like Talk of the Town, but I've seen you all across town. I want you to take me through talking to these different businesses and these collaborations and just tell me some of the exciting things that you've done so far.
Well, I think, going back to being in Nashville, it being Music City, a lot of people might not drink coffee in the morning, but they might drink an espresso martini. My dad is someone who's a coffee drinker late nights in the studio. So with it being in a can, being portable, we can really take that cafe or that coffee shop experience to people. So whether it's in the morning over a latte or whether it's in the evening over a martini, we can really meet people where they want to be met, still get that good cup of joe and that good caffeinated buzz.
And tell me, so I know like Supper Club is a spot where your products are available. Are there any more spots here in town?
Yeah, so it's a few co-working spaces. Supper Club is one. One Shop Nashville is another. But right now we are online and we're going to make a big push to try to be in more places.
And I wanted to ask about One Shop specifically. One Shop is kind of new, or at least new to me. And tell me about getting that collaboration started with these guys. I found their social media and I was like going through, I'm like, oh my goodness, all these like little brands. Tell me about actually getting with One Shop.
It was just Friday afternoon. Had gotten acclimated with who they were, and Rhonda from One Shop said, I like the story, and she allowed me to put some cans in there, and we've been partnered ever since.
Now, Shannon, throughout all this work, what impact do you seek to leave on Tennessee? And we're going to actually like get really deep into that in our final segment, but I just have to ask, what is the purpose behind this? And think about it as an individual purpose, as a purpose helping people in Ghana. Just tell me kind of what your mission is behind all of this.
Behind all the beans that we source from Ghana, it is direct, which means we do communicate directly with the farm and the suppliers, but we also are fair trade. So we ensure that those women, small farm holders, do get paid fair wages for those beans that they do send us. But on top of that, the one thing that I would like to continue to push to do is just redefine the coffee experience. It doesn't have to be something that's only in the morning. It doesn't have to be something that's bitter. It can be something that you can grab and go and have wherever you would like, any time of the day.
In our final segment, we're going to pick back up on just ultimately ways that we can support you, the impact that you seek to leave, what sets Cape Coast apart from different coffee companies, and more. And I encourage our viewers to tune into the final segment of Perspectives, where Shannon and I will be discussing Cape Coast Co., his background, education, and the impact that he seeks to leave on local Tennessee communities.
Come on, guys, you can get this.
Welcome to the final segment of the show for today. For viewers just tuning in, I am host Alana McLaughlin, and you are watching Perspectives. This morning on the show, I have Shannon Sanders Jr. here discussing Cape Coast Co. He's discussing his background, his education, and the impact that he seeks to leave on local Tennessee communities. In our first two segments, Shannon discussed his background. He discussed experiences with his grandfather, Jeff. We talked about just the impact that Jeff had on his businessmanship. And ultimately, we're picking right back up on this in this last segment, talking about just the impact that Shannon seeks to leave in ways that we as the community can support him. Shannon, I know I left off in that second segment asking you about your mission and about your why, and you talked about redefining what coffee means. A lot of people associate coffee with just, something to drink in the morning, something bitter, something hot. And I like how you're redefining this, and I have to ask you, do we see too many Black-owned coffee companies? Do you know of many others here in town?
Yeah, I mean.
Really? No, then tell me about it, because seriously, all I hear about is like the Folgers, the Starbucks, and as someone who consumes coffee daily but doesn't really know too much about the culture, kind of tell me about those inner workings.
Yeah, it's actually one right around the corner, No Free Coffee, and Mario's actually local as well. He's got a great coffee concept. All People Coffee in East Nashville is another one that's got a lot of representation too. Coffee, it can never be too many.
You're right.
Coffee's coffee. Every community deserves a coffee shop like they deserve a library or anything else.
And I like what you just said, every community deserves a coffee shop. A lot of us don't realize that coffee shops are not just places to just grab food and go. They're study spaces, they're community spaces. And tell me, once you establish a brick and mortar shop, I know it's coming soon, tell me kind of the vibe that you want to portray in your store, in your shop.
I think it's all about community and connection. You want to be productive, but you really want to have that community presence there. Coffee is just the means or the vehicle to connect. So whenever that does come, that'll be the one thing I want to focus on, is just building a community that's all about helping each other and being the most productive they can be.
Now tell me about expansion. Have you thought about expansion yet?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And then tell me some of your dreams, just some of those plans, just throw it out there. Tell me what you envision for Cape Coast in the next 5 to 10 years.
5 to 10, I think even sooner than that. We talk about getting in stores and places where we take up shelf space, but I want to tap into the community piece sooner than later. One thing I was meeting with the team about was the unhoused. Or those that might not have the things that we have. And I want to be able to take this can with how agile it is and take it to these communities and set up opportunities for them to get a good cup of coffee and bites as well. So that's one thing I really want to focus on.
And Shannon, a lot of people don't consider our unhoused populations when they talk about community efforts here in town. And I think about it, I had Kathy Jennings, the director of The Contributor, our homeless paper here in town. I had her on here and she talked to me, and she was saying that people on the streets just often miss those basic niceties. Just a nice perfume, a nice hot meal. And I was thinking about it, you can't brew coffee on the street. If you get it from Starbucks, by the time you get back to where you're going, it's cold, you can't warm it back up. And wow, to just be able to share something like that through a can, and the fact that you're actually thinking about these populations that are so often overlooked means a lot, man. And I want to talk about some of the other impacts that you seek to leave through your business. I know just like helping out people on the street, helping different communities, but just tell me some of the other benefits that you seek, things that are personal to you, the impact that you seek to leave through this work. And it doesn't just have to be through coffee. Seriously, Shannon, as a man, the impact that you seek to leave on this state, on the city.
Yeah, I think my goal this year is to go over to Ghana. It'll be my first time over there to visit my grandfather, see the community, really get integrated and acquainted with those farmers. One thing I want to try to leave, more so than just tangible things, is just an example. Like my dad left for me, just loving the process, finding an idea and being committed to the process, being committed to knowing it's not going to be the best all the time, but not losing sight of that goal and that finish line. More than anything else, that's really what I love and lead to do.
And I think that your work really does demonstrate just the love for the journey. You talked in our first 2 segments about just enjoying the process, about enjoying kind of the ups and downs. And like I said, that's really lost on our modern entrepreneurs nowadays. A lot of people just immediately want to get to the money. And I feel it, we all do. But seriously, there are growing pains associated with that. And I appreciate that you're open and on.
Well, I think about all the effort we put forward, somebody had to give us an opportunity or a chance or something. We're always being helped, whether we know it. So I choose to acknowledge all the help that has allowed me to be here today, whether it's my parents, whether it's the community, whether it's schooling. It's all important. So as the cans grow, the one thing I really want to focus on is giving back.
And I think it's a really full circle moment. You talk about giving back. Your dad was the pilot episode of this show. We're about 100 episodes in now, but back at episode 0, your dad was that person who extended his hand and gave me a chance. I called a lot of people here in town, and nobody was picking up the phone, but Shannon Sanders did. And he had no clue what he was doing by walking in here. and it changed my life. And it's funny now that I'm talking to you, I'm just like, wow, looking you in your eye, you have no idea what it took for us to just be in this space. And it's seriously, it's all about community. From the hand that your father extended me to the hand that I was able to extend you. This is what this is all about. And Shannon, in these last few minutes of the segment, take me through ways that people can connect with you and support you. I'm over here, man, I'm like about to cry because I'm thinking, I'm just like, this is God working. This is community, and this is exactly what he set out for us to do with our platforms. And in these last few minutes, plug yourself in. How can people support you? How can people shop? Tell me everything.
You know, the website is up, capecoast.co. But outside of that, I would say just outside of supporting online, I'd love to figure out opportunities to collaborate with folks in the community to set up some latte bars, coffee bars for the unhoused, or for any other events that we can do. Outside of that, I'd love to work on activating pop-ups at other locations, where they be those latte bars in the morning, or it can be espresso martinis in the evening. I really just want to meet people where they want to be met, and I want to collaborate and do everything I can to not only allow Cape Coast Co. to progress, but I'm looking for really bilateral win-wins for all partners involved.
And Shannon, I have to ask now, tell me, like, do you email? What does your day-to-day look like? If I'm watching this and I have this brand, this space, this venue, and I'm like, man, I need to walk out of my house, get in the car, and go find Shannon right now, where would I start?
So Shannon at capecoast.co, but if you have my cell phone number, I do pick it up.
and that's an awesome way of putting it. And seriously, that's an awesome way of just kind of wrapping up how people can support you. And we got about 2 minutes left, and I'm gonna pick your brain just a little bit more because you're too good to let go. Tell me, leave me with a statement that you'd like to leave for a budding entrepreneur that's watching this, specifically a young black man who's watching this saying, man, I admire his dad back in the day, I admire him, I'm seeking to kind of follow a similar path. What's some advice that you'd leave with that young man?
The one thing I would say is it's a formula that I got from my dad, ironically, in high school, where it was preparation plus opportunity equals success. So I would just encourage all entrepreneurs, fall in love with an idea, fall in love with the process, be prepared. And when the opportunity does arise, you'll be successful. But if every opportunity that comes across and you're underprepared, that doesn't set you up for success. So I would say it's just be prepared, stay true to the process, and it always works out.
Man, thank you for that, Shannon. You even just like lifted my spirits while I was listening. I'm like, ooh, I get to take all that home. But seriously, thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for just sharing your resources, sharing your story, and thank you for just being a man of the community. A lot of people, especially people who grew up with both parents in the house, people who grew up who did not have to fight for survival or who didn't have to struggle. A lot of people feel disconnected from our communities who do struggle, who do have to fight for survival. And I just really appreciate you, your father, and the likes for extending your hand and extending your hearts to the community. You are awesome, and you have my full support, and I know that our viewers feel the same. And to our viewers, thank you for just allowing me the space to share one more perspective, and thank you for just allowing me to share the stories that shape our beautiful community. Good morning.